the day I got my husband's diagnosis. He suddenly installed a camera in the master bedroom. That night, I saw him swear on the phone. "I won't touch her again. I've sent you the account number and password, so you can log in and check it at any time." I decided to stay celibate for love. Looking at his impassioned, flushed face, I silently put the diagnosis in the shredder. Stay celibate for love. Well, stay celibate for love. I could hardly stand still when the words ASL on Henry Simmons' diagnosis caught my eye. 3 months ago, Henry Simmons fell off a mountain and was hospitalized. I asked the doctor to do a full workup for peace of mind, but I didn't expect to get results like this. ALS cannot be cured at this point in time, and only medication can be used to slow down the course of the disease. But the end result is irreversible. The doctor looked at me with sympathy. Henry Simmons is in his early 30s. Handsome, strong and successful. As a well-known divorce lawyer in China, he is shrewd and decisive, calm and rational, is the elite of the elite. Private life is simple and regular. Hobby fitness, mountain climbing. Extremely concerned about the quality of life. I can't bear to think that a person like him will become an ALS patient who can't take care of himself. Sitting on the street, looking at the endless stream of people, for a long time, slowly got up. I thought it over. As husband and wife, we should go forward and backward together. No matter what will become of him in the future, I will take my son and face it with him. When I got home, it was already dark. My son, Ethan Xian, was quietly playing Go in his room. He had reached the chess prodigy level at the age of 7 and had been interviewed by a TV station as a child prodigy. "Have you eaten?" I asked him gently, adjusting my emotions. "Yes. Housekeeper made a soup of pork ribs and lotus root today." He didn't look at me, just focused on the chessboard. "Where's Dad?" "He went for a run." Ethan Xian is a quiet man who keeps his words simple. It's up to us. 2 hours later, I was leaning on the bed, debating whether to tell Henry Simmons about his condition. When he returned, he was dressed in a black tracksuit, and he was very smart. I was a little anxious. "It's only a few degrees outside. Why are you wearing so little?" One of the precautions that the doctor told me today is that ALS patients with muscle atrophy produce less heat and should not be exposed to the cold. Otherwise it will accelerate the progression of the disease. Henry Simmons said in a quiet voice without any expression on his face. "Running is like this." He opened the box in his hand, took out a camera and set it on the opposite side of the 5-body cabinet to adjust. Right in front of the bed. I'm a little confused. Why install a camera all of a sudden? There are thefts in the neighborhood. It's safer to have a camera. Aren't you afraid of compromising your privacy? I asked hesitantly, because Henry Simmons was a man who cared deeply about his privacy. He glanced at me and snorted. "Privacy? Who's interested in seeing your privacy?" I was too mixed up in my emotions to argue with him. When I went to bed, he lay down with his back to me, far away, as if he was too tired to communicate. I sighed softly. He had just finished a heated celebrity divorce case. The pressure was suddenly removed. Let him first relax. In the middle of the night, I woke up with a start. The side of the bed was empty. Henry Simmons wasn't there. I panicked and got up to look for him. On the balcony, he was on the phone in his pajamas in the night air. I grabbed my jacket and walked over to him. "I won't touch her again." The sound of a whisper made me step. "I've sent you the passwords and accounts, so feel free to log in and check them out." I decided to stay celibate for love. Through the glass, I stared at Henry Simmons. His face was so cold and indifferent. but it was so full of emotion. As I watched his face flush with emotion, my mind slowly responded to the logic of his words. For a moment, I felt like I didn't know him at all. Henry Simmons was a very demanding man in bed. Abstinent by day, demanding by night. In recent years, he's been under pressure to be more precise, to be more rigorous. And as a result, he's been living more and more in a closed mode. Only at night in love with the warmth of the moment. He gasped in the ear when the love I can find the first time that saw me blushing teenage appearance. We were classmates in the master's program and he chased after me. The only thing that made me fall in love with him was the way he looked at me and his voice trembled. I stayed on as a teacher, teaching psychology. He started as a salaried attorney, worked his way up to partner, and became a nationally recognized divorce attorney, earning millions of dollars a year. Personality-wise, we have a lot of similarities. Emotionally stable, rational and pragmatic, objective and calm, quality of life, willing to work hard for our ideals. I have a stable and decent job, and I can take care of my children and family. He has a successful career, and he is soaring in his professional field. We have been married for 8 years. We are respectful to each other. Mutual fulfillment. Living in a multi-million luxury penthouse. And have a son who is known as a child prodigy. We were the envy of all. But 6 months ago, something suddenly changed for him. He has the habit of evening jogging. Used to leave the house at 8:00. Come home at 9:00. Shower and half an hour of family time. It's always the same. But 6 months ago, he suddenly left the house at 7:00 and came home at 10:00. And when he came back, he seemed very tired and went to bed after taking a shower. So family time was cancelled. I asked him why the evening jog had taken so long. He pursed his lips and said in a quiet voice that he had no clue about the case. So he stayed out longer to clear his head. Mental labor is sometimes more tiring than physical labor. I understand. Later, it seems that he suddenly lost interest in bedtime affairs. I thought it was his stress affecting his body. Afraid of his self-esteem. Not to mention it. But inwardly very worried for him. Therefore, after he was hospitalized, I tried to persuade him to put down his work and recuperate for a while, and let the doctor give him a comprehensive examination. But now it seems, the situation is not as I thought. I lay back on the bed, eyes wide open in the darkness, quietly staring at the ceiling. The words he said just now were unfamiliar to me. And the expression on his face made me feel even more surreal. So much so, that after 2 major blows today, my curiosity overpowered what should have been sadness and anger. I was curious. What kind of woman was on the other end of the phone that made Henry Simmons, who had been practicing his coldness and rationality to the extreme in the past few years, turn into that kind of person? That's what she did to Henry Simmons. I'm a straight shooter. The next night, I put sedative in his milk. He was sound asleep. So I pinched his finger and turned on his cell phone. I found the number from last night's midnight. And after half a day's reading, one of my neurons made a connection. I've seen this number before. 3 months ago, when Henry Simmons was hospitalized after a fall, I asked the police for the contact information of the first person who found out had called the police. To say thank you. That's the number they gave me. I have a very good memory. I'm very sensitive to numbers. I can't get it wrong. I dialed the number in front of the police and a woman answered. Her voice was soft and gentle, but she sounded a little old. She said softly that she didn't want to meet, and thanked her. saying that it was the behavior of every normal person. After hanging up the phone, the police smiled and told me that other people may want to thank the money. She certainly do not want. I asked why. The cop said that he recognized her from his interviews, and that the woman had been in the news as most inspirational woman. She's a bitter woman. Her husband was paralyzed by a cerebral hemorrhage on their wedding day, and she left behind a 7-year-old son by her ex-wife. She took care of all his needs for 13 years and raised the child alone. After her man died last year, she finally got over it, and now has a stall in front of Central Park, selling beef stew. How could a person of her moral character accept a thank you note? I nodded my head with emotion. My husband was so lucky to have met her. At that moment, in the dead of night, I stared at my cell phone for a long time, and then clicked on the photo album. I don't know whether Henry Simmons was confident in himself or assured me that he was not hiding anything. What I saw was a screen full of pictures of women. The same woman. A warm, steaming stall under the stars at night. The woman's eyes are gentle. Her smile bright. She's chopping something, serving soup, or talking to a customer. Every picture is cozy and full of the good old days. In hundreds of photos, the woman has changed from a short-sleeved dress to a heavy cotton dress. The time span was half a year. On the third day, I went to Central Park and sat in front of the stall that said Brooklyn Street Food Stall. I looked at a woman named Lynn Wan. She was squatting in front of a flower bed, talking to a stray kitten in a gentle voice. There were 2 men standing in front of the stall, joking. Sister Lynn only has eyes for these kittens and puppies. She doesn't even make money anymore. Lynn evening busy get up. In front of the apologetic soft voice to explain. Sorry I just look at them poor. A moment too involved. Did not see you. Another man waved his hand. You are doing a good deed. These stray animals take you here as a home. Know that you are soft-hearted. All caught you rubbing food which. So warm and beautiful picture. We also enjoy watching. After the 2 men left, I went over to them. Beef stew. Lin Wan let out a sigh and helped me with the bowl with a smile. I looked at her through the white air. She was 35 or 36 years old, with fine lines extending from the corners of her eyes. Although she was not as youthful as a young girl, her features were soft and serene, and she wore a low ponytail with her hair hanging down, which was unique to a woman's softness and beauty. Sister, it's your first time here. They'll give you a few more pieces of beef tripe to try. I sat at the small table, slowly savoring the taste. A question kept nagging at my mind. A person like Lin Wan, with such experience and character, would she have interfered with someone else's family? Would she? In a flash, Lin Wan sat down in front of me. I was slightly stunned. She smiled gently and looked at me with bright eyes. You are lawyer he's wife, aren't you? I put my spoon down and quietly stared at her. So you know me. She smiled. I have a good memory. I've seen it on lawyer he's cell phone once before, so I recognized it. I frowned, remembering. Henry Simmons' cell phone screensaver used to be me and my son, but half a year ago he suddenly changed it to a landscape photo. She drops her eyes, and after a few seconds of silence, she speaks in a quiet voice. I know what you're doing here. You probably think I'm having an affair with Mr. He. Don't you? I didn't say anything. She slowly raised her eyes, looking warm and sincere. Sister, if you believe me, there is no such thing. The only contact I've had with Mr. He is that he has a bowl of soup at my place after running. When she said that, she had a worried look on her face. Later, I saw him drink soup when the mood is low. And do not talk to people. Looks like a lot of pressure. So I kindly relieved him a few times. I did not expect. Alas. He is probably misunderstood. He began to say some marginal words. But I listened to the funny. Not to mention that he is a family man. Even if it is single. His level of people. And how will look at me like this. I told him that this is an impulse. But he did not listen to it. But more and more excessive. And sometimes also ignore my wishes. Call to say some incredible things. In fact, if you don't come to me, I'd like to talk to you too. Mister. He must be under too much pressure to do these crazy and irrational behaviors. And as his wife, you may be able to help him more. I looked at the white oil slowly solidifying on the rim of the bowl. So you mean, these things are Henry Simmons' wishful thinking? You actually have been persuading him to reject him? Lynn Evening sighed quietly. Slowly nodded. I looked up and gazed at her. Slowly asking. Installing a camera in my master bedroom for you to view was also his impulsive move against your wishes? Lynn Evening stiffened for a second. And then said. I've already criticized him for this matter. It's simply too much nonsense. I continued to ask. What about the time you climbed the mountain together? The time he carried you down the mountain because you said your feet hurt? Was he the one who tied you up against your will? Lin Wan's pupils slightly dilated. Suddenly got up. Climbing a mountain? I don't know what you're talking about. I looked at her coldly. Didn't you say you have a good memory? I even called you to thank you for that time. And you've forgotten so quickly? At that moment, a customer shouted, Take away a large portion. Lin Wan pursed her lips and hurried to the stall, picking up the soup with a big spoon. With a loud bang, the hot pot full of beef stew tipped over, spilling the hot soup and haggis all over the place. The hot soup fell on her, and Lin Wan screamed out, her eyes suddenly reddening. The customer cursed and dodged, shouting bad luck, cursing and leaving. I looked at a mess in front of me. Do not want to stain half of the smell. Pick up the bag ready to leave. With red eyes, she suddenly shouted out, I'm sorry. I stopped and frowned at her. She stood in a state of disarray, sobbing softly. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about this. I was upset about my stepson's fight that day. And he came over and said he'd feel better if he hiked up a mountain. So I went. After he fell off the mountain, I was so scared that I called 110 and didn't dare to see you for fear that you would think too much. Her eyes were red. Tears were falling down. And her palms had a few big blisters because of the hot soup. She looked pitiful. Tina Jia, what are you doing? Behind her, there was a shout. Turning my head, Henry Simmons ran over from a short distance with an angry face. For a moment, I was stunned. I hadn't seen such emotion on his face in a long time. He was wearing the blue suit that he only wore for formal negotiations, which meant that he had come on short notice for an important work event. And once upon a time, even when ID called him after a car accident, had insisted on finishing the negotiations before arriving at the hospital. Henry Simmons looked at the ground with a wide-eyed grin, and then looked at Lin Even, who was sobbing in a low voice, and then pursed his lips tightly, and walked step by step to Lin Even's side. He hung his head, looked at the helpless woman in front of him, and violently pulled her into his arms. Are you okay? Did she hurt you? Lin Wan's face was smothered in his embrace, and she suddenly burst into tears. Her cries of frustration and grief. Henry Simmons closed his eyes in pain and said softly, Don't cry. Lin Wan. Don't cry. Remember your favorite saying. The hardest part is over. Your suffering is over. Completely over. There's nothing worth a single tear for Lin Wan. From the beginning to the end. Henry Simmons didn't look at me. I took out my cell phone and took several pictures of them. The sound of clicking was crisp and clear. Lin Evening abruptly left Henry Simmons' embrace and took a few steps back. Her face chagrined and bewildered, as if she had just realized what she had done. She looked toward me fearfully, explaining wildly. I forgot. I didn't mean to. She couldn't go on, because I just looked at her blankly. You don't have to say a word. I'll do it. Henry Simmons interrupted her in a deep voice and turned his head to look at me. In an instant he regained his usual calm and collected look of a barrister. Tina Jia, go back to your room. Here is very close to your university. The park in and out of many students. Here make a scene, shame on you, is also not good. Besides, he swept a glance at the messy ground. Bullying a lonely woman. Interesting? I coldly look at him. Voice smooth. You also know that there are a lot of my students in and out of here. Then you as my husband. And a widow here hugging like a dry fire. Is it not feeling very exciting? Henry Simmons' eyes were glazed over with indignation and shock. After all, I've always been gentle, graceful, easygoing in front of him. He's never seen me like this. Not even me. I can't slap any of you right now. But I can't be held responsible for other people's shit. I turned my head and asked Lin Nan, who was silently cleaning up. Ms. Lin. So you didn't say anything? It can't be that you really have this intention, right? She winced and shivered for a moment. And after a few seconds, she slowly raised her chin and said loudly, forget it. You guys stop arguing. It wasn't her, it was me who spilled it. Is that okay? With red eyes, she looked at Henry Simmons accusingly. Lawyer he. Now please take your wife and leave. Don't affect my business. I want to do your business in the future. Please don't come back. There are customers coming over one after another. What's going on here? What's going on? Sister Lin. Is someone bullying you? Who is it? Who dares to bully Sister Lin? I was the first to say no. I'm getting all kinds of looks. Henry Simmons' eyes sank, and he dragged me by the hand to the parking lot. I couldn't get away, so I followed him. I was greeted by a student with a ball in his hand. Hello, Mr. Tang. I nodded with a smile on my face. When I reached the parking lot, I shook off his hand and walked calmly to my car. The trees on both sides of the road moved back quickly, and as I drove down the avenue, I couldn't stop the tears from falling down my face. I gave myself half an hour. Anger, pain, acceptance, peace. Then the steering wheel turned and went to the bank. Henry Simmons and I had a family account in which we remitted our respective salaries, dividends and earnings. When the account was first opened, he laughed and told me, "You've always hated my lack of expression, haven't you? This account will be yours to keep. I'm only responsible for the money in it. As you and your son's future security. This expression you satisfied?" Over the years, the account has accumulated more than $18 million. The staff told me in a puzzled manner. This account has been frozen due to a guarantee default. Don't you know that? My hands and feet went cold and I asked slowly. When did this happen? 2 months ago. 2 months ago. He had just been discharged from the hospital, and I was exhausted from taking care of him for a week with a high fever. So while I was burning up, he was working on getting a head start on his divorce. I found it ironic and funny. On the way here, I regretted that I was too impulsive and played my cards right beforehand. But it turned out that he had already started to plan for me. Once a man changes his mind, he can be very cruel. It was already dark when I got home. Henry Simmons was sitting on the sofa in his pajamas, drinking tea as usual. He glanced at me. "Ethan Xian sent me to my mom's. Let's talk this over once and for all." I sat down and stared at him in silence. He sipped his tea and spoke slowly. "Originally intended to talk about a period of time. After all, I always have some intolerance. Want to let you mother and son as much as possible to enjoy a happy life longer. However, since you chose to take the initiative to make trouble today, then I can only follow your wishes. Tina Jia, I'm in love with someone else. Let's get a divorce." I was so calm that I even gave him a small smile. "Henry Simmons, can you tell me what you love about her that made you betray a 10-year relationship and leave your wife and children?" He frowned slightly. "If you have to ask for clarification." Silent for a moment. He spoke slowly in a gentle and emotional tone. "In the past few years, because of work, I have seen too much in the marriage of the cheat. Early on the feelings in marriage to lose the normal cognition and judgment. But after I met her, I realized that there is such a woman, just because of love and responsibility, can unhesitatingly take her best 10 years of youth. She brought life to my heavy, stagnant life. You ask me what I love about her? I've asked myself that question countless times. Because she is gentle, kind and strong. Because life gave her suffering, but she stubbornly blossomed in the mud. Because every cold night, she handed me a bowl of hot soup." As he finished his sentence, emotions welled up on his face and he seemed to have moved himself. The room fell silent. After a long time, I let out a soft slurp. "So housekeeper's soup isn't hot? You had to go outside to taste the fishy bites?" Henry Simmons' face went cold as he stared. "Tina Jia, you are a refined egoist. You won't understand such feelings." I nodded. "In that case, you leave with nothing. I agree to divorce." His face showed obvious sarcasm. Not to mention the fact that there is no such thing as leave with nothing in the law. Let's take a step back. I didn't have any substantial behavior with Lin Wan. I'm not even the one at fault. I stared at him for a long time without making a sound. Can a person really become so complete? To the point of turning his face to be ruthless. As if he had suddenly changed his soul. Henry Simmons seemed to guess what I was thinking, and narrowed his eyebrows. "You don't have to look like this. It's only natural to divorce when your feelings are gone." When I fell down from the mountain and waited for rescue, I thought clearly. Life is short. I don't want to be afraid to love. Even if I have to bear the name and condemnation, I have to go out and really live once. Tina Jia, don't forget what I do for a living. There are so many ways to do things. It's just a matter of whether I want to use them on you or not. I laughed lowly. Don't you want to use it on me? Didn't you use it already? Don't you think it's sacrilegious to desecrate your noble and pure love by playing with that sordid trick of freezing your accounts? Henry Simmons glanced at me and said faintly, "Looks like you went to check the account." It's nothing. It's routine. It's just a way to keep the divorce on track. I've already drawn up the divorce papers. I get the money and the kids. You get the house. And of course, you have to take care of the rest of the mortgage. I've done the best I can in terms of contributing to the family finances. Thud. I picked up the ashtray on the table and threw it at him. He covered his forehead. Bright red blood dripped from his fingers. 7. You're crazy. He was shocked and furious. And looking at the blood dripping down, he quickly grabbed his car keys and rushed out of the house without looking back. I slowly sat down. picked up the teapot, poured himself a cup of tea. In just 3 days, my life had changed completely. When I got out of the bank, I realized that Henry Simmons had finally used the same tactics had been using for years on me. I was probably more unlucky than other women. Not only was I emotionally betrayed, but my husband was a professional divorce attorney. Over the years, he had developed a ruthless, profit-driven demeanor. And if I continued to wallow in useless misery, I was doomed. I had to deal with things the way he did. So before I went home, I went to my mother-in-law's house to pick up Ethan Xian and put him in the home of a Go teacher I knew well. I drank tea, cup by cup, in silence. Outside the window, at some point, a bright moon hung quietly in the sky. After a long time, I got up and walked into my room, taking out the diagnostic report. In the midst of concentration, my cell phone vibrated and Henry Simmons sent me a picture. In the picture, his forehead was bandaged and he was lying on a woman's lap with his eyes closed. A man and a woman are holding hands. The following line of words: "Since you do not cherish him so much, I have nothing to feel guilty about. It is your help that makes me finally decide to say yes to him." It's a message, but it's also an outright provocation. How can a person who has survived life's desperate circumstances, who has seen all kinds of ugliness in the world, be a flower in the mud? She spilled the hot pot this afternoon on purpose, and apologizing for stopping me when I was about to leave was also intentional. Because she gave Henry Simmons advance notice. Henry Simmons sees the profit, but not the heart. Men are cheap. I whispered, and put the diagnosis in the shredder. The sound of the shredding settled my mind. Yes, I was facing. One is the most beautiful and kind woman, a well-known divorce attorney, but am determined to fight this battle with him. The marriage must be divorced. My son and the money, I have to have. And more importantly, I want this couple to be tied together for the rest of their lives, so that they can't be separated. The hardest part is over. Endless challenges ahead. There's a mountain to climb. I rejected Henry Simmons' offer of a divorce. As a professional divorce attorney, he doesn't want to go to court on his divorce because it shows that he's failed to negotiate. It shows that he can't get it right. It shows that he's not a professional. I'm not in a hurry. Not that I'm not in a hurry, but I'm certainly not in as much of a hurry as they are. Lynn was a saint in Henry Simmons' eyes, and if she made any advances before they had a formalized relationship, it would tarnish her integrity. So she can only refuse to meet, and when necessary, but also righteously as a good and moral messenger. Henry Simmons, on the other hand, is unlikely to do anything that would cause him to be at fault at this critical point in the divorce. So both of them have to keep it to themselves. At most, he can only borrow evening jog every night. Go to Lynn Knight's stall to drink a bowl of beef stew. Beef stew. I was holding a steaming cup of tea and admiring the snow outside the window. The doctor said that ALS patients should not only pay attention to the cold, but also avoid eating high-purine foods, or else it will speed up the development of the disease. High-purine foods are mainly animal offal. Henry Simmons came back after a week at the office. I was cleaning up when he walked in the door, with a band-aid on his forehead and a cold face. He went into the bedroom without a word. He quickly packed a suitcase and then looked at me and spoke in a cold voice. "I was going to leave the house to you, but what you did consumed our relationship. So we have to follow the law. The bank account is frozen. Our main common property is only this house. So do you sell the house to share half of me? Or directly give me the same value of money?" I threw the photo album in my hand into a cardboard box and laughed. "What? Lin Wan is thinking about this house?" Henry Simmons sneered. Do you think everyone is like you? With only interests in their eyes? Lin Wan has never talked about money in front of me. Don't insult her. He saw something. His brows suddenly furrowed and he came over to pick up the photo album in the carton. What are you doing? Throwing away the trash. His face showed his anger. And then it froze. This album was familiar to him. Inside were all the photos of me and him in college. From when he photographed me, to when we first met, to when we fell in love. I used to keep it in my safe as if it were a treasure, saying I'd save it for when we were old. In this case, I took the album from his hands without expression and threw it away. The quiet room suddenly a muffled sound. It's time for the evening jog, isn't it? I reminded him. He stood there with an ugly face, silent for a moment, turned around and threw down a cold sentence. Ethan Xian, you hide it is useless. After all, he is my son. Follow me to make his future development better. I will never give up on him. I will never give him up. With a bang, I closed the door and left. Half an hour later, I stood up, clapped my hands, and breathed a sigh of relief. All the things related to him were packed and packed, just waiting to be thrown into the garbage. All the memories of my youth that I'd held so dear before. But that's about it. As he was lamenting, his cell phone rang. A young man's voice came through. This is Daffy. Are you looking for me? I looked at the young man sitting in front of me, chewing gum with a big grin. Purple hair and lip ring. Cold eyes. A cool look. But look closely. He was wearing a thin cotton jacket on a snowy day, the cuffs of which were worn white, and the zipper was split with a few black threads sewn in a messy way, as if it were his own handiwork. They'll get right to the point. Are you Daffy? Lin Wan's stepson? He looks at me with his eyes open, but doesn't say anything. I took out a wad of cash and handed it over. My husband is divorcing me because of her. I need your help. It's a deal. He wrapped his arm around me and swept the money away. I was a little surprised at how quickly he answered. You agreed without asking. You believe me? What's not to believe? He kept chewing on his mouth and answered casually. After all, she worked so hard to bring you up. Pfft. Daffy spat out his gum in an arc, looking sarcastic. Instead of saying that she worked hard to take care of us, it's more like she enjoys the image she has in the eyes of outsiders. I sized him up and pulled out another wad of money. He rolled it away with a wave of his hand and continued to speak. I learned to play the piano when I was 4 years old, and the money my father had saved up for my lessons she donated to the Red Cross. When a reporter came to interview me, she said that other kids couldn't even afford to eat, and that our family was no worse off than theirs. Do you know how my father died? Bedsores infection in his back. She took care of him, but only on the front. I'm not surprised you said your husband was attracted to her. She's always had an image that attracted 1 or 2 idiots. But it's a first for someone in your position. Daffy asked as he walked away, clutching the money in his hand. So I just need to find a way to get her to force your husband to divorce. That simple? I nodded. It's that simple. Okay. You can't just get a divorce. You have to get a divorce that you want. I have to do both. The next day, I went to Brooklyn's street food stall in the light snow. Lin Wan was kneeling in the snow, head down, tying the shoelace of an old man on crutches. The other men and women are all giving their thumbs up. It would be a blessing to have a daughter-in-law like you in one's life. Lin Wan got up and said with a blush, I'm not the kind of person that anyone would look at. When she turned her head, she met my eyes and her face turned white. Pursing her lips, she walked to me and slightly raised her chin. Lawyer, he said that if you dare to come to me and dare to make a move on me, he will help me sue you. I lowered my eyes. And when I raised my eyes again, my anger surged. My face was twisted. And my whole furious appearance. Lynn Evening, what did you mean by the message you sent me that day? Are you two together? You're not afraid that I'm going to publicize your affair and make you unable to hold your head up for the rest of your life? Lynn Evening squinted at me for a moment and suddenly smiled, shaking her head and sighing lightly. I used to think that university teachers were unattainable and powerful. But now that I'm closer, I realize that they're no different from the women who make a scene on the street. She gazed at me with tenderness and compassion. What kind of heart? See the world as what kind? I did promise him. After all, he put a hot heart in front of me. No woman will not be touched by such sincere love. No woman would be touched by such a sincere love. Mr. He is such a good man. But he can't get a trace of warmth from his family even though he's under so much pressure. You really don't know how to cherish it. But I'm not as nasty as you think. Although I was forced to agree to him, I would never have a half-hearted affair with him when he has a family. I am what I am. He comes. I'm here. He doesn't come. I'm still here. That's all. I exclaimed. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. You're not just looking at his money. Otherwise, how would he have to fight with me for property before divorcing? She smiled, as if she did not care to argue with me. Everyone knows that the one thing I don't care about is money. Otherwise, I've had countless opportunities to marry into a wealthy family in the past 13 years. The only thing that can move me is my heart. I laughed coldly, incredibly sarcastic. He loves you so much. Why doesn't he get a divorce and marry you? It only shows that he sees money as more important than you. Lynn Evening's quiet face suddenly some ugly. I know what he means in my heart. I smiled proudly. Really? If you have the ability to let him leave with nothing, he, in order to be able to be with you, prefer not to money, also want to divorce. I believe that he is really love you. Otherwise, everything is bullshit. It's all hypocritical affair excuses. Lynn Evening's cheek muscles jumped suddenly, pursing her lips for a while before gazing at me. One word at a time. So what if he can do it? I spoke loudly and loudly. Then I will personally send congratulatory gifts at your wedding. So people know that even I, the ex-wife, was touched by your love. By then, your image will be even more glorious and grand. Lin Wan's eyes slowly lit up as I spoke in a staccato manner. I know. Her endorphins and dopamine. She's on the verge of something. It's been snowing in the city for a few days. And the traffic has been blocked. Lin's stall was temporarily closed. But the man and the woman who are in the mood for sex will not be deterred by such difficulties. Henry Simmons, citing his habit of drinking beef stew, walks half an hour to Lin's house every day after work in the snow and wind. He came to the house to drink beef stew. The two men were even more excited and surly about such a meeting because of the weather and the difficult distance they had to cross. Henry Simmons sat at the dining table. Lin Nan was busy just for him. And the two of them smiled at each other from time to time, which was really a cozy and beautiful picture. And the lights were relatable. These are what I saw from the camera. A few days ago, Daffy sent me an invoice. Reimbursement. I asked what it was for. He said impatiently, I'm too lazy to tell you about them. I bought a camera and installed it. You can see for yourself. Anyway, it's my dad's house. I can install it if I want to. I said yes after a moment's pause. Henry Simmons is thoughtful and sophisticated. Only in front of Lynn Knight. The old house is on fire like a devastating drop of wisdom. Know yourself and know your enemy, in order to control the rhythm. Moreover, but in the same way as others to treat their own people. One day, the two are a buried head to drink soup. A propped up chin staring. The atmosphere is very good. Duffy shocked home. He wrinkled his eyebrows and suddenly said, "So you are the wild man." Both of them immediately changed their faces. Lynn evening busy gentle explanation. Henry Simmons said in a deep voice that he was just a guest who came to drink soup. Daffy snorted. "It's so cold that he comes here every day to have soup. I thought the neighbors were making it up. But what are you panicking about? Together is together. What's wrong with admitting it? It's not just a male and female thing," he said, and looked suspiciously at Henry Simmons. "Could it be that you are a pig-killing dish?" Henry Simmons' face darkened. "I'm a lawyer." "Then you're a married man?" Henry Simmons' face white again. "I just come to drink soup." Daffy shouted. "Oh, my God. You're looking for my little mom to cheat on me. Fuck you. You've got a wife and you're trying to seduce a widow. I'll beat you to death." He was about to do it, and Lin Wan screamed and tried to drag him away. The door was open. It's boring to be cooped up at home in the snow. Many neighbors are already watching from the door. Everyone is talking. Lin Wan. Don't be fooled. Nowadays, all the scammers look like human beings. A few years ago, that man who came here so often. Remember, you thought he was a good Samaritan, but his wife came and made a big fuss. So don't be fooled again. Seeing this, Lin Evening smiled and explained that he was indeed just a guest who came to have soup, and that it was Daffy who had misunderstood. After this incident, Henry Simmons to take into account the impact. No longer go every day. Once in a while to go is also a bit sneaky posture. The two gradually become sad. Every time we meet, you and I, just a look at the eyes can be stagnant for half a day. I, on the other hand, sent Henry Simmons a version of the divorce papers. And he sent me 3 words. No way. One day, on camera, Lin Wan suddenly told Henry Simmons that she was leaving the city. Henry Simmons is shocked. "Why are you leaving?" Lin Wan's eyes were red. "Daffy is older now. It's not right for me to live with him like this. I don't have a home in this city, so I can only go back to my hometown, where my aunt has introduced me to a widower, who is in his early 50s. But in my condition, I can only. No way. That kind of man. How can he be worthy of you?" Henry Simmons' furious voice. "You are not allowed to marry someone else. You can only marry me." Lin Wan wept. "After all, you are a family man. I, Lin Wan, will never be a mistress who destroys other people's families. Mr. He. Forget it. Let's just say we're not meant to be together." Henry Simmons. In a deep voice. "Lin Wan, you wait a little longer. How can I let you be a mistress? I will definitely divorce. But you don't understand. In order to strive for greater benefits, I can't rush." Lin Evening suddenly stood up, choked and said loudly, "Aren't you a divorce lawyer? Why can't you get divorced? Didn't you say you make $20 million a year? Why do you still want to fight for that little money? I don't understand those curves between you. I only know that I don't want money. I just want a true relationship. Do you really see money as more important? If that's the case, you go. You don't deserve my heart." Henry Simmons texted me. "The house is yours. They'll take the money and my son." I replied, "They'll take it all. Don't go too far. Then take your time." When Henry Simmons appeared on camera again, It was night. Lynn was fresh out of the shower. Her hair wet. And wearing a new, somewhat see-through nightgown in the heated room. She was cold and didn't say a word to Henry Simmons, but kept bending her head and serving him soup and food. Henry Simmons' eyes were glued to her, and at one point he lost control of himself and tried to take her hand. But she shrugged it off in shock. "What do you take me for, Mr. This is the last time I make you soup. I'm going back to my hometown for a blind date next month, so you don't have to come back." That night, Henry Simmons sat silently in the living room for a long time. "You can have the house and the money. I'll take the son." I was silent for a moment. Let him decide who he wants to be with. "Okay. You said it. Don't go back on your word." Henry Simmons' words were firm. I gazed out the window at the clear, snowy sky. My heart was slightly tense. I wasn't sure about Ethan Chien. He could not forget at 3, started chess at 5, and became a child prodigy at 7. Unlike other children, he never cried or pampered himself. And even though I took care of his food, clothing, and transportation, he wasn't particularly attached to me. I teach psychology. I've looked up cases. Such children, because of the development of the brain's natural functions, lag behind others in terms of emotional needs and expression. To him, there doesn't seem to be much difference between me, Henry Simmons, and housekeeper. After I entrusted Ethan Chien to a Go teacher, every time I visited him, he would just stay calm and focused on the board. On the day of Ethan Chien's tournament, after dropping him off at the site, I left to go to the school, and when I arrived, Ethan Chien was being interviewed about his very short victory over his opponent. I saw Henry Simmons and my mother-in-law. The mother-in-law was holding Ethan Chien's hand and smiling from ear to ear. Henry Simmons is talking to the camera. The celebrity divorce that made him famous came about because the client recognized him as the father of a child prodigy and chose to believe him. He has since become Ethan Chien's spokesperson, which has brought him many clients. At the end of the interview, Henry Simmons turned to his mother-in-law and then walked towards me. "Tina Jia, I've already given in on the money and the house for the sake of our relationship. Of course, it's a lot of money for you, but it's only a year's salary for me, and Ethan Chien is much better off with me than with you." I gritted my teeth and smiled. "Ethan Chien said he chose you?" He grunted and turned slightly to the side so I could see Ethan Chien's back as he led his mother-in-law to the car. "What did you say?" My body freezes, my nails digging into my palms. Suddenly, the door opened and Ethan Chien got out of the car with his backpack on his back, his mother-in-law shouting behind him. With a steady pace like a little adult, he walked straight to me, looked up and said, "I just went to Dad's car to get my backpack. Mom, you're late." I spoke slowly, keeping my excitement in check. "Yeah, I'm sorry I'm late. I didn't think you'd be so good at this." Henry Simmons' face shook with anger, and he said, in a hushed voice, "Ethan Chien, come with Dad. I've hired a national player to tutor you." Ethan Chien looked calm. "But aren't you divorcing Mom? Then I can't go with you and Grandma." He took my trembling hand and said, "Let's go, Mom. I have to go back soon. I have a game tomorrow." I tilted my head slightly. "Okay, son." Henry Simmons froze. His face hardened. In the car, I suppressed my shock and excitement and spoke with deliberation. "Ethan Chien, do you really understand what it means when Mom and Dad get divorced?" Ethan Chien sat in the back and answered me in a childish but steady voice. "I know. Are you sad?" My teacher said, "Never be sad about the empty space you lost on the chessboard." My eyes were suddenly moist. I always thought he didn't know how to love and feel. But I was wrong. Just because he doesn't express it doesn't mean he doesn't understand it. For a master, his most precious energy is always focused on the present. When circumstances favor him, he doesn't project too much. When the circumstances change, he is able to judge and make choices in an instant. My son Ethan Xian. He's a natural. Once again, as Lin Knight wore a see-through nightgown and cried her goodbyes in his arms with reddened eyes, Henry Simmons finally lost control of himself. He almost forcefully, roughly, tore up the nightgown, which was not much fabric at all. He picked up the limp Lin Wan and walked into the bedroom. I exited the camera. Da Fei, however, did not let me go and send a message saying, "Your husband has been in that room for a day and a night and still hasn't come out. Do you want me to help you catch the adulterer? No need. Don't you want to be angry? Do you really want these two lovebirds to have a double date? You don't understand. They have to be together for me to be angry." 2 days later, Henry Simmons and I went to the civil court to get a divorce. The house, the money, the son, it was all mine. He was left with nothing. But he was glowing. Yeah. Had been in the closet for half a year. But it was nice to get a break from all that. As he walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, he looked at me coldly. "Tina Jia, do you think you've won? You probably don't know that next year, my firm will be expanding with new partners. And my bonus will be doubled. Which means that your hard-earned money won't be enough to pay me for a year. As for Ethan Xian, he's too young to understand now. When he's older, he'll know who can help him better. And by then, will you still be able to trap him?" At the end of his sentence, he suddenly lost his legs and fell flat on the ground. He got up in embarrassment and looked at his shoes. I watched him quietly and smiled. "Congratulations. If you live to enjoy it." He frowned and tried to say something. I turned around and walked away. One day not long after, Daffy intentionally brought a few friends to break in when the two of them were having a passionate battle and didn't know what the world was like. He was taking pictures and screaming for action. Henry Simmons was in such a mess that he had to take out the last of his $300,000 and shut them up. Lin Wan cried and said she had to get married right away and make a big deal out of it. Otherwise the gang would make up a lot of rumors. Later, Henry Simmons took out a $5 million loan with his law firm Equity Pledge, part of which was used as a 20% down payment to buy Lin a house, and part of which was used to organize a big wedding. Before the wedding, Lin Wan sent me a message asking, "Sister, are your words still true?" The words were sarcastic and smug. I replied, "Yes." On the day of the wedding, a news story suddenly broke on the internet. The headline was "Famous Divorce Lawyer Leave with Nothing for Love." The comments kept coming. "Gosh. This is unexpectedly good. I'm giving up my life's work to be with you. Isn't this the most inspirational woman? She's finally survived her ordeal and found her love. Yes. She has morals and ethics. She divorced with nothing before seeking love. There's nothing to criticize. But the original wife is still a bit upset. Right? I don't know how envious I am. I don't know how envious I am. Getting money and a house and leaving a man who doesn't love you. Isn't that nice? In any case, a professional divorce lawyer gives up his best ability for love. What is this not love?" That day, when the wedding was held to the climax, Lin Evening with hot tears emotionally said the words, "The hardest part is over." Under the stage, the applause was thunderous, and all the guests gave their heartfelt blessings to the couple, including me. One day, half a year later, I was driving Ethan Xian to the chess academy. when I saw Henry Simmons and Lin Wan in front of the hospital. They were sitting in the flower bed by the road, report bags in their hands, both staring blankly. Lin Wan suddenly got up and screamed. The result is still the same. It's not a mistake. Why is my life so bitter? After she finished screaming, she ran away in a state of panic. Henry Simmons didn't even raise his head. He didn't move. He was staring at his feet. Not long after, Daffy suddenly appeared. He walked over to Henry Simmons, grabbed him by the collar, and threw a punch. Henry Simmons fell to the ground unresisted. Daffy opened his mouth in anger. Didn't you say $20,000 a month? You owe me 2 months. Do you want those photos and videos to go out? Henry Simmons silently climbed up, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and whispered, I don't have any more money. I won't pay any more. Do whatever you want. Daffy snapped. No money? You are not the boss? Don't you have dividends? Who are you bluffing? Henry Simmons tilted his head and looked at the sky. I'm sick. ALS. The partners pulled out the first time they found out. And the equity value is just enough to cover the $5 million loan. I can't work now. I have no income. Daffy couldn't believe it. No money at all? Henry Simmons laughed sarcastically. If I wasn't sick, that money would be nothing. But before he could finish his sentence, a line of tears flowed out of the corner of his eye. The rear glass of the car suddenly fell. I turned around and Ethan Chien was looking out the window, shouting, Dad. Henry Simmons saw us. His body shook, then hung his head, choked. Ethan Chien. Tina Jia. I'm sick. I miss you guys. Dad. Your caller, Ethan Chien continued. Henry Simmons raised his tearful face and asked blankly, What? There's a piece of shit. Ethan Chien finishes his sentence and closes the window. Outside the window was Henry Simmons' desperate, helpless face. For a long time afterward, I deliberately didn't pay attention to Henry Simmons and Lin Wan. Once the gears of fate turn, the end is already predetermined. Until that day, Ethan Chien and I were sitting in the living room talking to each other after eating a new dish that housekeeper had learned to cook. I had changed my approach to Ethan Chien's education. I wanted him to feel more about life than just go. He pondered and asked me, Mom, do you feel lonely? I lost my smile for a moment, but then nodded slowly. Yes. I want you to spend more time with me. He thought about it and agreed. From then on, every day after dinner, he would no longer go straight into his room, but would talk to me and watch TV. When Lin's face appeared on the news, I was stunned. She was a completely different person. Her face was haggard. Her eyes were tired. Her cheekbones were high, and her lips were so thin that they were almost mean. She was wiping her tears at the reporter. My life is not good. A husband paralyzed. This husband is frozen. I hope the community can help me more. The camera pans to a bed in a simple room. A man is lying quietly on the bed looking at the ceiling. It's the thin and almost unrecognizable Henry Simmons. The reporter is passionate about the camera. In any case, we admire the spirit of a mess. Lin, who was united in love with her husband, who sacrificed everything to choose her, and who did not give up on him in times of trouble. Ethan Chien stares at the man on TV. Mom, I want to see Dad. I promised. 2 days later, I was surprised when I found the address on TV. It was an old, almost dangerous building, even worse than Lin's old house. I took Ethan Chien's hand and went up to the 2nd floor. The door was wide open, but no one was there. The furniture was shabby, and the clutter was piled up in a mess. I wondered if I was on the wrong floor when a whimpering sound came from the bed in the corner of the room. Henry Simmons was staring at us with his eyes wide open. I led Ethan Chien over to him. His eyes turned red, and 2 lines of tears flowed down his face as he made a muffled noise. "Son." I stared at him in silence. His eyes were sunken, skinny and bony, and his eyes, which used to be so sharp, had a cloudy and dim light. His hair was cut unevenly, as if someone had cut it with scissors, and his chest was half wet, with a few streaks of greens and grains of rice sticking to it. I couldn't believe for a moment that this was the same Henry Simmons who had always been so exacting about the details of his appearance. He stared at me without blinking. His eyes were filled with pain, sorrow, remorse, and despair. I calmed my opening. "Ethan Chien said he wanted to see you, so I brought him here." Ethan Chien took out a wad of money from the backpack he was carrying. "Dad, this is my New Year's money. I want to give it to you," Ethan Chien said seriously. "What's the use of giving it to him? It's still up to me." Lin Wan sneered and walked in, snatched the money from Ethan Chien's hand and quickly counted it. $20,000? She looked at me, her voice indignant. "Isn't that too little? He left you more than $20 million. I looked at her quietly. "What happened to the $5 million you had? Didn't he also buy you a house?" Lin Wan snorted. "That house? With a 20% down payment and him lying in bed. How could I afford the mortgage? I sold it and bought this one. At least I have a house to live in. The remaining $800,000 in the bank only earns $1,800 interest per month. And with the street subsidy, it's just enough to make ends meet. Tina Jia, since he's the father of your child, shouldn't you return some of the money?" I laughed. "Not enough to live on? Didn't you say money was the last thing you cared about? You are down and out and you ask me for money. If I am down and out, will you give me a penny?" Turning his head, he looked at Henry Simmons, who had been weeping silently, and spoke calmly. "At first, you swore on the phone to stay celibate for love. You did, and can keep it for life. You adored Lin Wan's unfailing devotion to her disabled husband. And you enjoyed it, too, with exactly the same treatment. Henry Simmons, you got what you wanted. So what the hell are you crying about?" Henry Simmons shuddered, and a long whimper escaped his lips. I was silent for a moment and asked Ethan Chien, "Do you blame Mom for doing that to Dad?" Ethan Chien shook his head. "No. The teacher said, there are no regrets when you make a move. You must be clear when you make a move. Otherwise, if you are not careful, you will lose the whole game." I breathed a sigh of relief, then remembered something and said nervously, "Son, you can't grow up to be one of those wife-chasing crematorium bosses. It's a disaster. I don't know why, but I think he's got some potential." Ethan Chien was confused. Why go to a crematorium to chase a wife? I was at a loss for words. I didn't know how to explain it. Ethan Chien was able to make his own sense of it. "I see. Just like Dad, right?" "No, Mom. I'm the chess player." "Chess player? I don't understand." Ethan Chien's voice was calm and sure. "A chess player is always responsible for every move. Once a move is made, it can never be changed. It's all very confusing, but I believed it. After all, my son Ethan Chien, he's a master.